His jeans hung low across his stacked abs and well-defined obliques. God, he was huge. Broad shoulders filled her vision as he crouched beside the bed. Those of us who read romantic fiction will be familiar with this type of depiction of our main character. But what about when the main character is more along the lines of, a rangy Chris Christopherson, I know, old school, or Adrian Brody, Dev Patel, Will Smith? What about the men who are built that way? It's so often the case that the main male characters in romantic fiction are built broad shoulders, stacked abs. You know, I can count on the fingers of one hand, maybe, where the character, the man, is not a buff, broad-shouldered, muscular, big, beefy type, where instead he's described in more realistic terms. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this episode. And there'll be, as usual, a couple of books where I'll pick out characters that break the mold. I am Anne Butler, the author of romantic novels After the Hurt and Caught Out. And I have also published a collection of short supernatural stories called Not Everyone Stays in the Light. All of my novels are available on Kindle Unlimited. Okay, so today's episode. Books where the main characters, where the men, are not big, beefy beefcakes, but are instead referred to as rangy, or wiry, or lithe. First of all, just so you know, in romantic fiction, I don't mind reading about the big, buff main character. I really like it, as many of you readers out there probably do too. The only exception is when for me, is when he is big and beefy and massive and she's all teeny tiny, barely 5 foot tall. That speaks to something else in my mind, and I find it a huge turn-off. That type of characterization, not a huge fan of, but in general terms, a big, beefy main character, don't mind, I quite like. I don't mind when they are not big and beefy. The reason I like finding heroes in stories who are not overly muscular, overly developed, is the reason I like reading books, not just romantic fiction, where the main character is considered to be less than perfect, whether in physical ability or physique, learning ability, and the rest. It's a fine line when we get into those kinds of descriptions and we use people's abilities, various abilities, as a device in stories. Has to be treated very carefully. And I prefer it when the character just so happens to be ... rather than the thing that makes them stand out being at the crux of the story. In the past, I've been irritated by stories which hit the reader at every page with the thing about the character that makes them different from the normal love interest, from the normal type. For example, when the woman is curvy and full-bodied, a normal-sized woman, and the author constantly makes reference to her size and compares her to the skinnier characters. I don't need it reinforced throughout the story. Just describe her. Describe what she's wearing. Explain why it suits her, without making it all about the fact that she looks great even though, you know? And the same goes for the main male characters. So I'm waffling a little bit. Stories with heroes who aren't big, buff, muscular types. Right. This is an older story. It's Cover of Night by Linda Howard. And the main character is Mr. Harris. Cal Harris. Cover of Night is a thriller romance. And I actually didn't like this story all that much. I am a Linda Howard fan, but this story I did not like all that much. I feel like the setup was really over the top. The bad guys were cartoonish, like in a, I don't know, low production made for YouTube film. Sorry, Linda Howard. That's how I felt about Cover of Night. However, lots of other readers loved it, gave it 4 and 5 stars. So take what I've said with a pinch of salt. What stayed with me the most are the early scenes with Mr. Harris, where he struggles with his unrequited love for Kate, our other main character in the story. What worked for me in the story is Cal Harris's transition from the skinny handyman with the crush to, in the words of one of the antagonists, a skinny-ass bastard with a big shotgun. Right, so next is Cord Bennett in the story Eyes of Silver, Eyes of Gold. This is an historical romance, a Western, set in the US in the 1880s. Cord is the youngest brother in his family, born to his father's second wife. He's mixed race and he is viewed with suspicion by his siblings and the townfolk for no reason other than the fact that he's mixed race. And he's had to deal with all kinds of trouble and physical and verbal assaults from childhood. And the story begins with a particularly awful thing that happens to him and how he comes out of it. However, without sort of giving too many spoilers away, Cord describes himself as skinny. The main character, the other main character, Anne, thinks of him as lean, and she loves all his leanness. And getting to know Cord's character, he comes off the page as larger than life, and regardless of his build. And it's all down to how the author describes his characteristics and how we, as the reader, get to know him. No one can beat him in a fair fight. No one can outshoot him. No one knew or could train horses better than Cord. And he is a wonderful character. And if he'd been given a kind of a big, muscular build, 6'4", the usual heroic tropes in romantic fiction, I don't believe the story of his and Anne's survival would have had as much of an impact on me as it did. And that's why this is one of the stories that stood out to me as well done, with a character that was slightly different and of a slighter build. Do you see what I did there? Cover of Night by Linda Howard was published in 2006. Eyes of Silver, Eyes of Gold by Ellen O'Connell was published in 2010. And at the start of this episode, I quoted from a couple of books. One was From the Top by Danny Collins, and the other was The Billionaire's Obsession, Simon, by J.S. Scott. Thanks for listening. This has been Anne Butler, the Book Griffin. If you enjoyed this episode, then please consider subscribing or hitting the thumbs up or the like button. You can follow me on Instagram and on TikTok by searching for The Book Griffin. Until next time.